The text came on a Friday evening while I was finalizing the Mediterranean cruise itinerary at my kitchen island. "Hey, Jenny, can you take pictures of everyone tomorrow at the family Christmas party? Eric wants professional quality shots for his corporate social media." My mother-in-law's message felt like a punch to the stomach, or rather, my former mother-in-law. It had been exactly 10 months since I discovered Eric was leaving me for my children's aunt, his own brother's wife, Stephanie, and now they wanted me to photograph their perfect family Christmas while standing on the outside looking in. I set my phone down, my hand trembling as I tried to refocus on the stack of travel brochures before me. The itinerary for our family Mediterranean cruise was nearly complete. The vacation I'd spent 2 years planning and saving for, even through the divorce. The trip I'd insisted on keeping as a tradition for our extended family, despite everything that had happened. Barcelona, Marseille, Florence, Rome, Athens, carefully researched excursions for everyone, including Eric and Stephanie. Because that's who I was, the peacekeeper, the one who put family harmony above personal feelings. But as I stared at my mother-in-law's text, something inside me finally snapped. 10 months of being the reasonable one while watching Eric and Stephanie flaunt their relationship across social media. 10 months of comforting our children when they returned from weekends with Daddy and their former aunt, now playing stepmom. 10 months of the Mitchell family tiptoeing around the elephant in the room while still expecting me to maintain traditions, host gatherings, and now photograph the family Christmas party I wasn't invited to attend, except as the help. Take pictures of everyone but me. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Part 1. The Perfect Planner's Imperfect Life. I'm Jennifer Mitchell, Jenny. To friends and family. At 36, I'd built my reputation on making everything appear seamless and beautiful, both professionally as an event planner and personally as a wife and mother. My company, Perfect Day Events, had become Portland's go-to for weddings and corporate functions that required immaculate attention to detail. I orchestrated flawless celebrations for others while maintaining what I thought was a solid marriage, raising our 2 amazing children, Lily and Noah, and juggling the complexities of the extended Mitchell family dynamics. Eric and I met in college. He was the charismatic marketing major with big dreams, and I was the organized, creative one who helped make those dreams achievable. We married young, had our children, and settled into a comfortable life in Pinewood Heights, a picturesque suburb outside Portland. His career in corporate marketing took off, partly because I was the behind-the-scenes support system making sure our home life never interfered with his ambitions. When he needed to work late, I handled the children. When his family needed holiday hosting, I coordinated everything. When his company required a polished spouse at functions, I played the part flawlessly. The Mitchell family had accepted me warmly, at first. Eric's parents, his older brother Mark and Mark's wife Stephanie, his sister Catherine, and the family matriarch, Grandma Ruth, had all embraced me as the perfect addition to their close-knit clan. Grandma Ruth especially had taken me under her wing, appreciating my respect for family traditions and my willingness to help maintain them. "Family is everything," she would tell me during our cooking sessions before holiday gatherings. The Mitchells stick together, through thick and thin. I believed in that principle. I'd lost my own parents in my early 20s, which perhaps explained why I worked so hard to secure my place in Eric's family. The Mitchells became my anchor, my sense of belonging in the world. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. The way Eric's eyes lingered on Stephanie during family gatherings. How they always seemed to end up in deep conversation at holiday parties. The sudden increase in Mitchell family business meetings that required both their attendance. But trust is a precious thing. It creates blind spots for what you can't bear to see. It was an ordinary Tuesday last February when my world imploded. I was using Eric's laptop to finish some billing for a client when a notification appeared. Dinner reservation confirmation at Marlowe's, the most exclusive restaurant in Portland. The reservation was for the following evening, Valentine's Day, when Eric had told me he'd be out of town at a marketing conference in Seattle. My stomach clenched as I opened his email, something I'd never done before. There they were, months of exchanges between Eric and Stephanie, plans, intimate photos, complaints about their respective spouses. "Mark doesn't understand me like you do," she'd written. "Jenny's too focused on being perfect," he'd replied. "We deserve happiness too." I sat frozen at our kitchen island, the same one where I'd planned countless family gatherings, helped the children with homework, and organized our family calendar for over a decade. I didn't cry. The shock was too complete, too overwhelming. When Eric came home that night, I simply placed the laptop in front of him, open to the emails. His face went pale. "I was going to tell you after Valentine's Day," he said finally. "We didn't want to hurt you or Mark like this." The irony of his statement might have been laughable if it weren't so heartbreaking. They'd planned to drop the bomb after enjoying their romantic Valentine's celebration. How considerate. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyer meetings, stunned relatives, and devastating conversations with our children. Lily, at 10, understood too much. "But Aunt Stephanie is Uncle Mark's wife," she'd said, her small face contorted in confusion. "How can she be with Dad now?" Noah, just 8, kept asking when Daddy was coming home, unable to grasp that the foundation of his world had permanently shifted. Eric moved out immediately, staying at a hotel before eventually moving in with Stephanie, who had also left Mark. They didn't even attempt to be discreet once everything was exposed. Within 2 months, they were posting couple photos on Instagram. 3 months in, they were attending family functions together, while I struggled to maintain normalcy for our children. The Mitchell family split into uncomfortable factions. Mark, understandably, wanted nothing to do with either of them. Eric's parents were torn, unwilling to disown their son, but deeply disappointed in his choices. Catherine sided with Mark, but tried to maintain connections with everyone. And Grandma Ruth, she surprised me most of all. "Come to dinner on Sunday," she commanded over the phone 6 weeks after the separation. "Just you and the children. Robert will be there too." Uncle Robert, Eric's father's brother, had always been kind to me, though we weren't particularly close. He was the family's financial advisor and had managed the Mitchell family businesses after Eric's grandfather passed away. I almost declined. The invitation, the thought of social interaction beyond work and basic parenting responsibilities seeming impossible. But something in Grandma Ruth's tone told me this wasn't a casual dinner invitation. When we arrived at her elegant Victorian home that Sunday, the familiar scent of her famous pot roast and rosemary potatoes welcomed us. Lily and Noah immediately ran to the backyard where Grandma had set up a new croquet set, their laughter floating through open windows, a sound I hadn't heard enough lately. "Sit," Grandma Ruth instructed, pouring me a generous glass of wine, as Uncle Robert nodded a greeting from his seat at the kitchen table. "Now tell me everything, and don't leave anything out. I want to know exactly what that grandson of mine has done." So I told her about the emails, the lies, the Valentine's reservation, the humiliation of facing friends and neighbors who knew my sister-in-law had taken my husband. I told her about Eric's indifference to how his actions were affecting our children, about Stephanie's casual cruelty and acting as though she'd done nothing wrong by helping destroy 2 marriages. "And now his mother wants me to be the photographer at their family Christmas gathering," I finished, my voice finally breaking. "As if I'm just the hired help, not family anymore." Grandma Ruth's face had grown increasingly stern throughout my story, her warm blue eyes turning to ice. Uncle Robert looked equally troubled, making notes in a small leather notebook. "And what about the children's educational accounts?" Uncle Robert asked suddenly. "Have you checked the balances recently?" I shook my head, confused. Eric always handled those. He said they were automatic investments from his bonuses. Grandma Ruth and Uncle Robert exchanged a meaningful look. And your joint accounts? Uncle Robert pressed. The equity in your home? The retirement funds? We're still sorting through the divorce settlement, I explained. Eric's been pushing for a quick resolution, saying he wants to be fair, but my lawyer advised me to slow down and examine everything carefully. Smart lawyer, Uncle Robert murmured, making another note. Jenny, Grandma Ruth said, leaning forward. When each of my grandchildren married, Robert and I established trust funds for their future children's education and set aside investment, shares in the family businesses. Eric was given access to your portion 3 years ago when he joined the board of Mitchell Properties. He was supposed to be managing it for your family's future. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My mind reeled. What trust fund? What investment shares? Eric never mentioned any of this to me. That weasel, Grandma Ruth muttered. Robert, we need to see exactly what's happened to Jenny's accounts. Call Gregory first thing tomorrow. Gregory, I would learn, was the family's longtime attorney. And what had happened to my accounts was systematic draining. Not just of the trust fund I never knew existed, but of our children's education savings, our joint investment portfolio, and even equity from our home through a second mortgage Eric had somehow taken out without my knowledge. As the truth unfolded over the following weeks, I discovered Eric had been financing a lavish secret life with Stephanie for years. The business trips that never appeared on company expense reports. The investment opportunities that produced no documentation. Even the bonus he claimed to have used for my birthday jewelry last year. All fabrications covering financial infidelity that paralleled his emotional betrayal. This is precisely why I insisted on separate financial agreements within the family, Grandma Ruth said during one of our now regular Sunday dinners. My husband built Mitchell Properties from nothing. I wasn't about to let poor decisions threaten the legacy for future generations. I nodded numbly, grateful for the prenuptial agreement I'd signed at 24, thinking it unnecessary but wanting to please Eric's family. That document, along with some smart maneuvering by Gregory, had protected the house from Eric's claims and secured a reasonable support structure for the children. But the trust fund, over $250,000 that should have been growing for years, had virtually disappeared. Spring melted into summer, and I fell into a new routine. Working at perfect day events during the day, parenting alone at night, and spending weekends creating memory-making adventures for Lily and Noah to compensate for their father's increasingly sporadic visits. Eric and Stephanie had taken a healing getaway to Bali in May, funded, I now understood, by money that should have gone to our children's future education. Sundays at Grandma Ruth's became my lifeline, not just for the practical financial guidance from Uncle Robert, but for the emotional strength I drew from Ruth's unwavering support. You know what I see when I look at you, Jenny? She said one evening as we sat on her porch swing, watching the children play flashlight tag with some neighborhood kids. I see a woman who's been knocked down but refuses to stay there. Mitchell. Women, even those who marry into the name, have steel in their spines. I wanted to believe her. Some days I almost did. I'd started therapy, was considering expanding my business, and had even joined a support group for divorced parents. Small steps toward rebuilding. Then came the email that sent me spiraling again. Annual Mitchell family Christmas celebration at the lodge, the subject line announced. The Mitchell family Christmas gathering at their Crescent Lake property was a tradition stretching back decades. Every year, the entire extended family spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day together exchanging gifts, sharing meals, taking the annual family portrait, and making memories in matching pajamas. You're still family, Grandma Ruth insisted when I called her, panic rising in my throat. You and the children belong there as much as anyone. But Eric and Stephanie will be there, I protested. I can't watch them play happy family while I'm treated like an outsider. Which is precisely why you need to attend with your head held high, she countered firmly. Besides, I'm making my annual announcement this year, and I want you there for it. The annual announcement was another Mitchell tradition. Each year, Grandma Ruth used the Christmas gathering to share important family news, business decisions, property matters, or changes to her estate planning. Last year, she'd announced Uncle Robert would take over day-to-day operations of Mitchell Properties while she stepped into a chairman role. "What's the announcement this year?" I asked, curiosity temporarily overriding my anxiety. "You'll find out with everyone else," she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "On Christmas Day." As December approached, my dread grew. I shopped for presents with a tighter budget than usual, helped the children make ornaments for the family tree, and tried to manufacture holiday spirit I didn't feel, all while working overtime at Perfect Day events during the busy holiday party season and finalizing details for the Mediterranean cruise I'd been planning since before the divorce. My attempt at maintaining one special family tradition despite everything. The cruise was my gift to everyone. Scheduled for spring break, it represented nearly 2 years of careful saving and planning. I'd researched child-friendly excursions in each port, requested adjoining cabins for families with children, arranged specialty dining for Grandma Ruth's dietary needs, and even secured premium shore excursions for Eric and Stephanie without once betraying my feelings about their relationship. The cruise planning binder had become my testament to rising above personal pain for family harmony. The week before Christmas, I met my friend and colleague Olivia for lunch. We'd worked together at Perfect Day events for years, and she'd been one of the few friends who'd stood by me without judgment through the entire ordeal. "You don't have to go," she said after I'd vented my fears about the Christmas gathering. "Your mental health matters too, Jenny." "Grandma Ruth insists," I sighed, "and she's been my rock through all of this. I can't let her down." Olivia considered, this while sipping her soup. "Then go and show them exactly what they've lost. Get your hair done. That honey blonde highlight you've been considering. Wear that emerald dress that makes your eyes pop. Bring your famous cranberry orange bread that everyone fights over. And when Eric or Stephanie try to engage, be absolutely frigid with politeness." I laughed despite myself. Frigid with politeness? Is that even a thing? "Absolutely," she insisted. "It's like killing them with kindness, but with a sharper knife. No tears, no drama, no giving them anything to gossip about later. Just you looking gorgeous, being gracious, and making them wonder why the hell they ever thought their happiness should come at your expense." It wasn't bad advice. As Christmas approached, I found myself embracing Olivia's strategy. I booked the hair appointment, purchased the emerald dress, and spent an entire evening baking not just my famous cranberry orange bread, but also the chocolate peppermint cookies that had always been Eric's favorite. Not for him, but because they were delicious and I refused to let his betrayal steal one more thing from me. 2 days before we were set to drive to Crescent Lake, my former mother-in-law's text arrived. "Hey Jenny, can you take pictures of everyone tomorrow at the family Christmas party? Eric wants professional quality shots for his corporate social media." And something inside me finally broke. I stared at the Mediterranean cruise planning binder on my kitchen island. Over $30,000 invested in deposits for a spring vacation designed to include everyone, even Eric and Stephanie. A vacation meant to show that despite everything, the Mitchells could still be a family. That I could rise above the pain and create beautiful memories for our children. But they didn't want me in their family photos. They wanted me behind the camera, documenting a family moment I wasn't considered part of anymore. I picked up my phone and did something I'd never done before. I called Grandma Ruth instead of texting my former mother-in-law a polite acceptance. "They want me to be their photographer," I said when she answered, not bothering with pleasantries. "The family Christmas photos." They don't want me in them. They want me to take them. A long silence followed. When Grandma Ruth finally spoke, her voice was dangerously calm. "Did Catherine ask you this?" "No, Linda did." Linda was Eric's mother, Grandma Ruth's daughter-in-law. Another silence. "I'll handle it," she said finally. "And Jenny? Bring that cruise planning binder with you when you come. I think it's time." We discussed a few changes to the spring vacation plans. The morning we were set to drive to Crescent Lake, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, applying mascara with a steadier hand than I expected. The woman staring back looked stronger than I felt, her honey blonde hair falling in soft waves, her green eyes enhanced by subtle makeup, her shoulders squared with quiet determination. "We can do this," I told my reflection. "One day at a time." Lily and Noah bounded into the bathroom, already dressed in their Christmas outfits, eyes bright with excitement despite the complexities of our new reality. "Mom, are we leaving soon? Will there be snow at the lodge? Did you pack all the presents? Will Dad already be there?" The questions tumbled out, and I answered each one calmly, marveling at their resilience. "Children adapt," my therapist had told me. "They follow your lead. If you show them stability and love, they'll find their footing even when the ground shifts beneath them." As we loaded the car, I took one last look at our house, the home Eric and I had shared, the home he'd walked away from. The Christmas lights twinkled along the roofline. The wreath hung perfectly centered on the front door. It was still home, different now, quieter perhaps, but still ours, mine and the children's. The 3-hour drive to Crescent Lake passed, with Christmas music playing and the kids chattering excitedly in the back seat. I felt my anxiety rising as we turned onto the familiar pine-lined road leading to the Mitchell family lodge. But I took deep breaths, remembering Olivia's advice. Frigid politeness. I could do that. Cars already filled the circular driveway. Uncle Robert's sensible SUV, Mark's truck, Catherine's minivan. And there, gleaming in the winter sunlight, Eric's Tesla, parked beside Stephanie's white Range Rover. They'd arrived together, of course. The happy couple. "Daddy's here!" Noah exclaimed, spotting the car immediately. "And Aunt Stephanie," Lily added, her voice carrying a note of confusion that broke my heart all over again. I managed a calm smile. "Yes, they're here. Remember what we talked about? We're going to have a wonderful Christmas with the whole family. Everyone will be kind and respectful to each other, because that's what we do during the holidays." I didn't add, "That's what family is supposed to do all the time, not betray each other and steal husbands." Some lessons were better left untaught. We were barely out of the car when the lodge's massive wooden doors swung open, and Grandma Ruth appeared, elegant in her traditional Christmas cardigan and pearl necklace. "There you are," she called, making her way carefully down the steps with more energy than many people half her age. I was beginning to worry. The children ran to her, receiving hugs and candy canes before racing inside to find their cousins. I followed more slowly, gifts and bags in hand, steeling myself for what awaited. Grandma Ruth pulled me into a fierce hug. "You look beautiful," she whispered, "and stronger than you know." "I'm trying," I whispered back, fighting the emotion, threatening to crack my carefully constructed facade. She stepped back, her eyes twinkling with something I couldn't quite identify. "Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to rewrite the story others have planned for us," she said cryptically. "Now come inside. Catherine's been asking when you'd arrive." Before I could ask what she meant, she was ushering me through the doorway, taking bags from my arms, commenting on how wonderful my cranberry orange bread smelled. And then I was in the great room, with its soaring ceiling draped in garlands, the massive Christmas tree glittering beside, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the frozen lake. The fireplace crackled with warmth, stockings hung in a neat row, and gathered around it all was the Mitchell family in their holiday finery. That's when I saw it. the professional camera equipment set up on a tripod near the tree. The photographer, adjusting settings and directing family members into position for what was clearly going to be the family Christmas photo. The photographer Grandma Ruth had hired, making my former mother-in-law's request completely unnecessary. Across the room, Eric spotted me. His face registered surprise, then discomfort. Beside him, Stephanie shifted awkwardly, her hand finding the small of his back in a gesture so familiar it made my stomach clench. He used to touch me that way. I felt Uncle Robert materialize beside me, a glass of mulled wine appearing in my hand. "Chin up," he murmured. "Remember who you are." A Mitchell woman, I thought. Steel in my spine. I took a sip of wine, let the warmth spread through me, and stepped fully into the room to greet the family I wasn't sure was mine anymore. The Mediterranean cruise binder tucked securely in my tote bag, ready for whatever conversation Grandma Ruth had planned. I placed a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. "It's okay, honey. Let's talk about something else." "Why?" Stephanie challenged suddenly. "Why should we pretend everything's fine when it's clearly not? You've turned the children against us, convinced Ruth to disinherit us, and now we're supposed to just eat Christmas dessert like one big happy family?" "Stephanie," Uncle Robert warned, "not in front of the children." "They should know what their mother is doing," Stephanie exclaimed. "Using them as pawns to get sympathy, to get money." "That's enough," I interrupted, standing abruptly. "Lily, Noah, please go to the game room now." They hesitated, wide-eyed at the tension crackling around the table. "Go on," Grandma Ruth encouraged gently. "Take your cousins too. There's a new puzzle in the cabinet you might enjoy." Once the children had reluctantly filed out, I turned to face my ex-husband and sister-in-law. I have never, not once, spoken negatively about either of you to my children. I have bent over backward to maintain their relationship with their father despite his indifference. I have swallowed my pain and anger to ensure they don't carry the burden of adult problems. "Oh, please," Stephanie scoffed. "The perfect martyr act is getting old, Jenny." "It's not an act," Catherine said sharply. "Some of us have actually been present, Stephanie. We've seen Jennifer pick up the pieces while you two play house with money that isn't yours." "This family has clearly made its choice," Eric said, bitterly, backing Jennifer no matter what, refusing to even consider our side of things. "What exactly is your side?" Michael asked, sounding genuinely curious. "That you were justified in cheating with your brother's wife? That taking money meant for your children was somehow okay?" Eric flushed darkly. "You don't know anything about our marriage. Jennifer and I were practically roommates toward the end, and I never intended to keep that money. It was a temporary reallocation for investments that would have benefited everyone." "Investments like the Westlake property?" Uncle Robert inquired innocently. "The one you and Stephanie put an offer on last month? How exactly would that have benefited Jennifer and the children?" Stephanie shot Eric an alarmed look, clearly unaware that this information was known to the family. "We're done here," Eric announced, throwing his napkin on the table. "Come on, Stephanie. We don't have to sit here and be attacked." "What about the children?" I asked as they both stood. "It's Christmas Day. You're just going to leave?" Eric hesitated, looking torn for the first time. I'll call them tomorrow. We can do something special next weekend." And with that, they walked out, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. I sank back into my chair, suddenly exhausted. "Well," Linda said after a moment, "that was certainly the most dramatic Christmas dinner we've ever had." A ripple of nervous laughter broke the tension. Family members began talking again, deliberately light and casual, as if trying to reestablish normality. I participated mechanically, smiling when appropriate, answering questions directed my way, but inside, I felt hollowed out. Later, after the children were in bed, and most of the family had retreated to their rooms or headed home. I found myself sitting alone on the dock behind the lodge. The night was clear and cold, stars reflected in the frozen surface of the lake. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself, watching my breath form clouds in the crisp air. Footsteps on the wooden planks announced Uncle Robert's arrival. He handed me a steaming mug. Hot chocolate laced with something stronger, based on the smell. "Thought you might need this," he said, settling beside me. I accepted it gratefully, letting the warmth seep into my cold hands. What a day. Indeed. He took a sip from his own mug. "How are you holding up?" I considered the question seriously. "I don't know." Shocked, angry, relieved in a way. Sad for the children. All of the above. All perfectly reasonable reactions. We sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping our spiked cocoa, watching the stars. Finally, I voiced the thought that had been nagging at me since the confrontation. "Do you think I'm partly responsible for how things turned out? With Eric, with Stephanie?" Uncle Robert turned to me, his expression thoughtful in the dim light from the lodge windows. "Do you mean, did you somehow cause them to behave dishonestly and cruelly?" "No, absolutely not. But maybe if I'd been different, more ambitious, more exciting, more like Stephanie." "Stop," he said firmly. "That's a road that leads nowhere good. Eric chose to betray you rather than address whatever issues existed in your marriage. Stephanie chose to pursue her brother-in-law rather than respect family bonds. Those choices reflect their character, not yours." I nodded slowly, wanting to believe him. It's just, when someone leaves you for someone else, it's hard not to compare yourself, to wonder what they have that you don't. What Stephanie has is a fundamental selfishness that allows her to take what she wants without regard for who gets hurt. Is that really something you wish you had? Put that way, it sounded ridiculous. No, of course not. The measure of a person isn't in what they accumulate, money, partners, status, Uncle Robert continued. It's in how they respond to life's challenges. By that metric, Jennifer, you're worth 10 of them. His words warmed something inside, me that had been cold for months. Thank you for saying that. It's just the truth. He drained his mug and stood. Don't stay out too long. It's freezing. After he left, I remained on the dock, thinking about what he'd said. For so long, I'd been defining myself in relation to what I'd lost. My marriage, my in-laws, my sense of security. But maybe it was time to start thinking about what I'd gained, or could gain, from this painful chapter. Independence, clarity, a chance to model resilience for my children, a deeper understanding of which relationships in my life were genuine and which were conditional. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time since Eric left, I felt a flicker of possibility rather than just loss. And there was the Mediterranean cruise binder, sitting back in my room. The vacation I'd spent nearly 2 years planning, that I'd continued organizing even after Eric left, because I thought maintaining family traditions was important, because I believed the children deserved normality, because I still hoped somewhere, deep down, that we could all be civilized adults. The vacation I'd decided, in my conversation with Grandma Ruth this afternoon, to completely reimagine. The drive home from Crescent Lake the next day was quieter than the journey there. Lily and Noah were subdued, processing in their own ways the drama they had witnessed. I kept the Christmas music playing, maintaining a cheerful facade for their sake, but my mind was racing with all that had transpired. "Mom?" Lily said eventually. "Are Dad and Aunt Stephanie in trouble with Grandma Ruth?" I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, choosing my words carefully. Grandma Ruth made some decisions that Dad and Aunt Stephanie weren't happy about. Grown-up decisions about money and property. Because they did bad things? Noah asked, his voice small. I sighed. There was no perfect way to answer this. They made choices that hurt our family, and Grandma Ruth believes those choices should have consequences. Like when I don't do my homework and lose screen time, Noah suggested. Something like that, I agreed, grateful for his simplification. Actions have consequences, even for adults. Lily twisted the hem of her sweater anxiously. Is Aunt Stephanie still our aunt? Of course she is, I assured her, though the words tasted bitter. Nothing changes the fact that she's Uncle Mark's ex-wife and your aunt. But we won't see her as much now, right? Noah pressed. I hesitated. That might be true, at least for a while. Sometimes when adults have disagreements, they need some space from each other. Like you and Dad needed space, and that's why he left? Lily's innocent question pierced straight to my heart. Not exactly, sweetheart. That was different. How could I explain the complexities of adult relationships to a 10-year-old? The important thing to remember is that none of this is your fault, and all the adults in your life love you very much. This seemed to satisfy them for the moment, and they turned their attention to the tablets I'd allowed them to use for the drive home. I returned to my own thoughts, wondering what the coming days would bring. Would Eric follow through on his threats to contest Grandma Ruth's decisions? Would Stephanie try to reach out to repair our relationship now that money was involved? How would I manage co-parenting with a man who had made his hostility so clear? By the time we arrived home, darkness had fallen. The house looked just as we'd left it, Christmas lights twinkling welcomingly. Inside, however, it felt different somehow, as if the events at the lodge had altered something fundamental about our living space, or perhaps about me. Can we have pizza for dinner? Noah asked as we hauled our bags inside. Sure, I agreed easily. It's still Christmas break. We can bend the rules a little. Out! While the children unpacked and sorted through their Christmas haul, I ordered dinner and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Stephanie, a text from Eric asking to speak with the children, several messages from family members checking in after the dramatic holiday. I decided the calls and texts could wait until tomorrow. Tonight was for regrouping, for creating a peaceful evening after the emotional turbulence of Christmas. Over pizza and ice cream, we watched a movie together, all piled onto the living room sofa under blankets. Both kids fell asleep before the end, exhausted from the excitement and tension of the past 2 days. I carried Lily to bed first, then gently woke Noah enough to guide him to his room, tucking him in with a kiss on his forehead. Alone in the quiet house, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen island with my laptop and the Mediterranean cruise binder. There were practical matters to address now, understanding exactly what Grandma Ruth's announcements meant for our future, preparing for the legal battles that likely lay ahead, figuring out how to navigate the new family dynamics. I opened the envelope Grandma had given me, spreading out the documents inside. The legal language was dense, but the implications were clear. I was now the sole owner of the Crescent Lake property, a beautiful piece of real estate that had been in the Mitchell family for generations. The trust for Lily and Noah was substantial enough to ensure they could attend any college they chose, without financial stress. And there was a stipend, a monthly payment to help with living expenses until the children turned 18. It was overwhelming. I had gone from worrying about making ends meet on an event planner's salary to having significant assets overnight. The financial security was a relief, of course, but it came with complications I hadn't anticipated. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. How did Christmas go? Call me when you can. I hesitated, then decided I needed a friendly ear. She answered on the second ring. Hey, you survived, she greeted me cheerfully. Was it as awful as you feared? Worse and better. It's complicated. I took a deep breath. Grandma Ruth basically disowned Eric and Stephanie and gave everything to me and the kids instead. There was a moment of stunned silence. Holy crap, Jenny, are you serious? Completely. She announced it in front of the entire family on Christmas Day. There was a scene. Eric and Stephanie left. It was incredibly dramatic. Wow, Olivia breathed. I don't even know what to say. Are you okay? I'm still processing, I admitted. On one hand, I'm relieved about the financial security. On the other hand, I know this is just the beginning of a whole new battle with Eric and Stephanie. Let them fight, Olivia said fiercely. They've taken enough from you. If Ruth wants you to have these things, that's her choice. I know, but I sighed, struggling to articulate my discomfort. I never wanted any of this, Liv. I just wanted my family to stay intact. I wanted my marriage to work. I wanted my sister-in-law to be my friend, not my rival. Of course you did, she said gently. You're a good person who got hurt by selfish people. But now you have a chance to rebuild on your terms, with real security for you and the kids. I guess you're right. I took a sip of wine, considering her perspective. It's just a lot to take in. One day at a time, she advised. You don't have to figure everything out tonight. After we hung up, I sat with my thoughts for a while longer. One day at a time. It was the same advice I'd been following since Eric left, the only way to navigate grief and upheaval without becoming overwhelmed. But now the days ahead looked different, filled with new possibilities as well as new challenges. I turned to the cruise binder, opening it to the detailed itinerary I'd created. 12 days aboard the Mediterranean Splendor, visiting 7 ports in 3 countries. I'd spent countless hours researching family-friendly excursions, securing special experiences, choosing the perfect staterooms for each family unit, including adjoining balcony cabins for Eric and Stephanie. I traced my finger over their names in the reservation details, remembering how I'd gritted my teeth while booking those specific rooms because Stephanie had mentioned wanting a balcony view. I'd done it because I thought it was the mature thing to do, the right thing for the children, to include their father and his new partner in family traditions. But after everything that had happened at Christmas, after seeing how they'd treated me, not as family but as someone to be used and discarded, I couldn't stomach the thought of spending 12 days on a ship with them, pretending everything was fine, watching them parade around in matching outfits, monopolizing the children's time, acting like the perfect couple while I played the role of the sad divorced fifth wheel. I'd been planning to discuss this with Grandma Ruth before making any decisions. But sitting alone in my kitchen, surrounded by evidence of Eric's financial betrayal, and still raw from the day's confrontation, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and called the cruise line. Good evening, Mediterranean Luxury. Cruises, how may I assist you? The agent's voice was cheerful despite the late hour. Hi, I need to make some changes to a group booking. I gave her my reservation number and verified my identity. What would you like to modify, Ms. Mitchell? I took a deep breath. I need to remove 2 passengers from the reservation, Eric Mitchell and Stephanie Anderson. Certainly, and would you like to cancel their stateroom as well or keep it for other guests? Cancel it, and I'd like to use the refunded deposit to upgrade the remaining staterooms. For the next 30 minutes, I methodically dismantled and reconstructed our family vacation. I upgraded Grandma Ruth to a suite. I moved my nephew Michael and his wife to a better deck. I added special dining experiences for the children. I even splurged on spa packages for Catherine and myself. When I finished, the Mediterranean cruise was transformed from an awkward attempt at preserving a broken family tradition into a genuine celebration for the people who had actually stood by me. The people who deserved my effort and attention. All changes have been confirmed, Ms. Mitchell, the agent said. You'll receive an updated itinerary by email shortly. Is there anything else I can assist you with tonight? No, that's perfect. Thank you. As I hung up, I felt a strange lightness, as if I'd set down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for months. For the first time since Eric had left, I'd made a decision that prioritized my own well-being and happiness over the illusion of family harmony. I'd chosen myself. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. Eric's name flashed on the screen. I considered ignoring it, but eventually decided that avoidance wouldn't solve anything. "Hello?" I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "About what happened at your grandmother's." "Good morning to you too, Eric." He sighed impatiently. "Can we be adults about this, please? This is serious." "I'm aware," I replied. "But I'm not having this conversation while the children are awake. They've witnessed enough tension already." "Fine," he conceded. "When can we meet?" "Today I can't do. I'm taking the kids ice skating and then we're having dinner with friends." A small lie. We had no firm plans yet, but I needed time to prepare for whatever confrontation he was planning. "Tomorrow then. Coffee at the Pines Cafe, 10 a.m. "Fine," I agreed. "I'll be there." After hanging up, I checked my messages and found 3 more from Stephanie, each increasingly desperate in tone. "We need to talk about what Ruth did. This isn't fair, Jenny. Call me back." "Are you really going to let her do this? I'm your sister-in-law." "Please call me. We can work this out without attorneys." The last one made me laugh out loud, though there was no humor in it. Now she remembered our relationship. After months of flaunting her affair with my husband, after helping him hide money meant for our children, after deliberately excluding us from family gatherings she'd organized, now she wanted to invoke family ties. I deleted the messages without responding. Whatever Stephanie and Eric had to say could wait until our coffee meeting tomorrow. Today was for my children, for creating some semblance of normality after the chaos of Christmas. "Mom, can we go sledding?" Lily asked, appearing in the kitchen doorway still in her pajamas, hair sticking up in all directions. "It's not really snowy enough for sledding," I pointed out, glancing through the window at the light dusting that had fallen overnight. "But we could go ice skating at the winter park downtown. Would you like that?" Her face lit up. "Yeah. And can we get hot? Chocolate with the little marshmallows?" "Absolutely," I promised. "Go wake your brother and get dressed. We'll have breakfast and then head out." The Pinewood Heights Winter Park was an annual tradition, transforming the town square into a wonderland of twinkling lights, vendor booths, and activities. The centerpiece was a large outdoor skating rink that operated throughout the holiday season. In previous years, we'd always gone as a family, Eric holding Lily's hand while she wobbled on her skates, Noah racing ahead to show off his speed. Today would be different, but I was determined to make it special. I layered the kids in warm clothes, packed extra gloves and scarves, and drove downtown with Christmas music playing on the car radio. The park was crowded, families taking advantage of the school break to enjoy the holiday attractions. We rented skates and made our way onto the ice, Lily clinging to my hand, Noah testing his balance with cautious steps. "Remember when Dad fell last year and tore his pants?" Noah said suddenly, laughing at the memory. Everyone could see his superhero underwear. I smiled, the memory bittersweet. He was pretty embarrassed. "But he kept skating anyway," Lily added. "He said it was worth it to skate with us." These small reminders appeared constantly, little landmines of nostalgia that exploded when least expected. I had learned not to dodge them, not to change the subject when the children mentioned their father in happier contexts. Those memories were theirs to keep, untarnished by adult complications. "Look who's here!" a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Olivia gliding toward us, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Liv!" Lily squealed with delight. My friend was a favorite with both children, bringing them small treats and always taking an interest in their activities. "I didn't know you'd be here," I said, genuinely surprised. She winked. "Thought you might need backup for your plans with friends today." I smiled gratefully. Olivia had understood my need for a buffer, for company, for something to fill. The day that might otherwise have been consumed by rumination over Eric and Stephanie's machinations. "Who wants to race to the other side?" she challenged, and Noah immediately accepted. The two of them took off across the ice while Lily and I followed more slowly. The morning passed in a blur of skating, hot chocolate with many marshmallows as promised, and browsing the festival booths. At lunchtime, we ducked into a cafe to warm up, ordering sandwiches and soup. "Thanks for joining us," I told Olivia, while the kids were preoccupied with the cafe's small toy corner. "I think I really needed the distraction." "Anytime," she said warmly. "So, coffee with Eric tomorrow. What's your game plan?" I shrugged. "Listen to whatever demands or threats he wants to make, then tell him I need to consult my lawyer before agreeing to anything." "You have a lawyer?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not specifically, but Grandma Ruth's attorney Gregory called this morning and offered his services. Apparently, she instructed him to provide whatever legal support I need on her dime." Olivia grinned. "Your grandmother-in-law is officially my hero." "She's something else," I agreed. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything she's done." "Are you worried about tomorrow? I considered the question. Not worried, exactly. More resigned. This is just the beginning of what will probably be a lengthy battle. "You'll win," Olivia said confidently. "The truth is on your side." I hoped she was right, but experience had taught me that truth didn't always prevail, at least not cleanly or easily. Eric and Stephanie were resourceful, determined, and now desperate. That made them dangerous. But I pushed those thoughts aside for now, focusing instead on enjoying the rest of our day at the festival. We watched an ice sculpture competition, listened to a children's choir singing carols, and bought caramel apples from a vendor who dipped them in chocolate and sprinkles while we watched. By the time we headed home, dusk was falling. The children were happily exhausted, their faces flushed from the cold and excitement. As I tucked them into bed that night, earlier than usual due to their yawns and heavy eyelids, I felt a rare sense of accomplishment. Despite everything, I had given them a good day. The next morning, I dropped Lily and Noah at Catherine's house. Her daughter Emma was a friend from school, and drove to the Pines Cafe with a knot of tension forming in my stomach. Eric was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 coffee cups in front of him. "You remembered how I take my coffee," I observed as I slid into the seat across from him. 12 years of marriage," he replied with a shrug. "Some things stick." I took a sip, gathering my thoughts. Eric looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from stress rather than lack of sleep. His usual polished appearance was slightly disheveled, shirt not quite pressed, stubble a day past intentionally fashionable. "Where's Stephanie?" I asked. "I thought she'd be here too, based on her barrage of messages. I thought it would be better if we talked alone first." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, Jenny, about what happened at Christmas." "Let me guess," I interrupted. "You want me to intervene with Grandma Ruth, to convince her to change her mind, to make everything fair again?" His jaw tightened. "Is that so unreasonable? This affects more than just us. It affects the children, the entire family dynamic." "Yes, it does," I agreed. "Just like your affair with my sister-in-law affected more than just us. Just like your theft from the children's accounts affected more than just us. Actions have consequences, Eric. Isn't that what you always told?" "Noah when he misbehaved? That's not—" He broke off, visibly restraining himself. "I didn't come here to fight. I came to propose a solution that works for everyone." "I'm listening." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Stephanie and I are willing to drop any legal challenge to Ruth's changes if you agree to a fair division. The Crescent Lake property stays with you and the kids, but we get a portion of the business shares, say 10% each." That still leaves you as the majority shareholder for the children, but gives us some stake in the family business. I stared at him, incredulous. You're negotiating? After everything you've done, you think you deserve a fair division of assets that were never yours to begin with? We're still family, he insisted. Whether you like it or not, Stephanie is still Ruth's granddaughter-in-law. I'm still the father of your children. Family, I repeated slowly. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. A flicker of surprise crossed his face at the movie reference. We had watched The Princess Bride countless times together before his expression hardened again. Be reasonable, Jennifer. A legal battle will be messy, expensive, and public. Do you really want the children to see their parents fighting over money and property? Don't, I said sharply. Don't use the children as leverage. You lost that. Right when you drained their college fund to woo my sister-in-law. He flinched, a small confirmation that Robert's accusations had been accurate. That's not... I was planning to replenish it. With what? The money from selling the Westlake property you were trying to buy? That property that, by the way, would have given you control over access to the family lake house? Was that part of your long game too? Eric's eyes narrowed. You've been talking to Robert. Robert. Grandma Ruth. Gregory. I've been learning quite a lot about your activities over the past few years. Things I was too trusting, too blind to see while we were married. He sat back, reassessing me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. You've changed. Yes, I agreed simply. I had to. We stared at each other across the table. The remains of our marriage laid bare between us. I had loved this man once, had built my world around him, had believed in the life we were creating. Together. Now he felt like a stranger, someone I had never really known at all. So, what happens now? He asked finally. You get everything, and Stephanie and I get nothing? You get exactly what Grandma Ruth decided you deserve, which is more than you would have gotten if the legal system were fully aware of your financial manipulations. I gathered my purse, preparing to leave. I won't be intervening on your behalf, Eric. Any communication about this should go through Gregory from now on. This isn't over, he warned as I stood. Stephanie won't accept being cut out of her inheritance. She'll fight. Let her, I said, surprising myself with my calm certainty. I'm done being the peacekeeper, the reasonable one, the wife who sacrifices to keep everyone happy. I paused, remembering something critical. Oh, and I canceled your spots on the Mediterranean cruise. You can make your own vacation plans from now on. I walked out of the cafe with my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. It was the first time I'd stood up to Eric directly without hedging or apologizing or trying to smooth things over. It felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. My phone rang almost as soon as I got to my car. Stephanie. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message as I drove to pick up the children. Jenny, this is ridiculous. We're family. We need to work this out without lawyers and drama. Call me back, please. Her voice held that familiar note of calculated vulnerability, the one she'd used throughout our relationship to get her way. It had worked with clients, with Eric, and yes, often with me. But not today. Instead of calling her back, I texted, If you want to talk, I'll be at the Perfect Day Events office tomorrow at 2 p.m. You can meet me there. The response came immediately. Why at your office? Because I want a professional setting with my staff present, I replied. Take it or leave it. There was a long pause before her next message appeared. Fine. See you then. I picked up Lily and Noah, thanked Catherine for watching them, and drove home feeling strangely light despite the confrontations ahead. For the first time in months, I was setting the terms of engagement rather than reacting to Eric and Stephanie's moves. That evening, after the children were in bed, I called Grandma Ruth to tell her about my meetings with Eric and Stephanie. I'm not surprised, she said, when I described Eric's attempt at negotiation. He's always believed he could charm his way out of consequences. He seemed genuinely shocked that I wouldn't advocate for him, I admitted. Of course he was. You've spent your entire marriage smoothing his path, making things comfortable. He expected you to continue playing that role even after he betrayed you. Her assessment stung with its accuracy. How many times had I covered for Eric's forgotten commitments? How often had I rearranged my schedule to accommodate his priorities? How frequently had I swallowed my own needs to avoid rocking the boat? And now Stephanie wants to meet, Grandma Ruth mused. Are you sure that's wise? She can be quite persuasive when she wants something. I know. That's why I'm meeting her at my office with staff present. I want witnesses and a professional setting. Good thinking. You might consider having Gregory there as well. I hesitated. Isn't that a bit intimidating? 4 against 1? Exactly, she said with satisfaction. Stephanie needs to understand that the days of manipulating this family are over. She's not walking into a negotiation. She's walking into an accountability session. I smiled despite myself. My grandmother-in-law had never been one for half measures. The next afternoon, I arrived at Perfect Day Events an hour early to prepare for Stephanie's visit. My assistant Megan arranged the conference room with water and coffee, while I reviewed the notes Gregory had sent over, a detailed accounting of the Mitchell family investments, and Stephanie's prior involvement with company finances. At precisely 2 o'clock, the front desk called to announce Stephanie's arrival. I took a deep breath, smoothed my skirt, and walked to the reception area with as much confidence as I could muster. Stephanie looked flawless as always. Designer. Jeans, cashmere sweater, expertly applied makeup, but there was a tightness around her eyes that betrayed her stress. Jenny? She said. Leaning in for a hug, I deliberately sidestepped. Stephanie, the conference room is this way. She followed me down the hall, her stiletto heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Her step faltered slightly when she saw Gregory, waiting inside, his silver hair gleaming under the recessed lighting, legal documents spread neatly before him. I thought we were meeting alone, she said, a hint of accusation in her voice. I never said that. I gestured to a chair across, from Gregory. Please have a seat. She hesitated, then sat down with the practiced grace of someone accustomed to controlling every room she entered. This feels unnecessarily formal for a family discussion. This isn't a family discussion, I clarified, taking my own seat beside Gregory. This is a meeting about business and legal matters that affect my children's future. Something flickered across her face, annoyance perhaps, or the realization that her usual tactics wouldn't work today. Jenny, listen, she began, leaning forward with that earnest expression she used so effectively in her marketing presentations. I understand you're hurt. What Eric and I did, how we handled things, was wrong. I should have been more sensitive to your feelings. She paused, waiting for acknowledgement. I remained silent. But dismantling family inheritance plans that have been in place for decades, cutting Eric and me out of the business completely? That's an extreme reaction that hurts everyone, including the children. Actually, Gregory interjected mildly, Mrs. Mitchell's adjustments to her estate planning are quite moderate given the circumstances. Many families would have implemented much more severe measures in response to the financial improprieties we've documented. Stephanie's gaze shifted to him, her expression cooling. And you are? Gregory Williams, counsel for the Mitchell family. I've represented Ruth Mitchell's interests for nearly 30 years. I see. Well, Mr. Williams, with all due respect, this matter should be resolved within the family, not through attorneys. That option became unavailable, I said quietly. When you and Eric began siphoning money from accounts intended for my children's future. That's an exaggeration, Stephanie protested. Eric was managing investments that would have benefited everyone eventually. Gregory slid a document across the table. Perhaps you could explain these transfers then? 6 withdrawals from the children's education accounts over the past 18 months, totaling just over $87,000. Coincidentally, that amount matches deposits into your personal account at Pacific Savings during the same period. Stephanie's face paled slightly as she glanced at the bank statements. I wasn't aware. Eric handled our finances. You assumed the money he was spending on luxury vacations and jewelry was legitimately his to spend, I finished for her. Despite knowing his event-planning wife couldn't possibly be funding that lifestyle. She looked up, her expression hardening. Is this why I'm here? So you and Ruth's lawyer can shame me about money that Eric managed? I came to discuss potential compromise, not to be accused of crimes. No one is accusing you of crimes, Gregory said smoothly. At least, not yet. We're simply establishing facts before discussing any potential compromise. Facts like your role in monitoring Mitchell Properties' advertising strategy for competitors, I added, or your meetings with board members without disclosure of your relationship with Eric. Her eyes widened slightly. How did you... The Mitchell family has many long-standing relationships in this community, Gregory explained. When concerns arose about unusual patterns of behavior, certain inquiries were made. Spying. You've been spying on us. Stephanie's voice rose with indignation. Is privacy worth nothing in this family? Is loyalty worth nothing? I countered. Is honesty worth nothing? You helped my husband empty accounts meant for our children's college education while pretending to be my friend. You suggested I plan this Mediterranean cruise knowing you were sleeping with Eric behind my back. You asked me to photograph your perfect family Christmas rather than be in the pictures. The last accusation escaped before I could stop it, revealing the wound that still felt freshest, most personal. Stephanie had the grace to look momentarily ashamed. The photos were Linda's idea, not mine. I would never have asked you to do that. But you didn't object either, did you? You were perfectly happy to have me standing on the outside, documenting your triumph. That's not fair, she protested. I've been trying to include you in everything. I invited you to my birthday dinner last month. As the photographer. Gregory nodded, satisfied. I thought as much. We should hear from them within the week. As predicted, 3 days later, Eric and Stephanie accepted Grandma Ruth's terms. The papers were signed, the funds were transferred, and just like that, the legal battle I'd been dreading was averted before it truly began. I should have felt triumphant, or at least relieved. Instead, I felt a curious emptiness, as if something fundamental had been lost along with the conflict. In a way, it had. My sister-in-law was effectively out of my life now, our relationship damaged beyond any foreseeable repair. My marriage was long over, of course, but now even the pretense of an amicable co-parenting relationship seemed impossible. You did the right thing, Olivia assured me over coffee a few days later, after I'd confessed my mixed feelings about the resolution. You protected yourself and your kids. That's what matters. I know, I sighed. I just never imagined my life turning out this way. Divorced at 36, estranged from my in-laws, raising 2 kids, essentially alone. Not alone, she corrected firmly. You have Ruth, Robert, Catherine, friends who love you, and now you have financial security too. That counts for a lot. She was right, of course. The settlement had transformed my financial situation overnight. I no longer needed to worry about mortgage payments or whether I could afford summer camps for the kids. The Crescent Lake property had been transferred to my name, and Gregory was helping me understand the tax implications and maintenance responsibilities. There was also the matter of the Mediterranean cruise, now reimagined as a vacation for just our side of the family. I'd sent updated itineraries to everyone included, and the responses had been enthusiastically positive. Catherine had called. Immediately. No, Eric and Stephanie, best cruise ever. 2 weeks after the settlement, Uncle Robert took me to see the Crescent Lake property that was now mine. I'd been there many times before, of course, for family gatherings, but I'd never explored it with an eye toward ownership. The property consisted of 5 acres of lakefront land, anchored by the main lodge where we'd celebrated Christmas, and including a small, well-maintained guest cabin that had once been a caretaker's residence. The cabin sat on a secluded cove, separated from the main house by a stand of ancient pines. "It's beautiful," I breathed, standing on the wooden dock that extended into the clear blue water. "I never realized this little cabin was part of the property. Ruth's kept it as a writing retreat for years," Robert explained. "Been holding on to it for the right person," she always said. "It has a special energy, creative energy. I could feel it too, something peaceful yet invigorating about the place." The cabin itself was rustic but solid, with a large main room whose windows framed the lake like a living painting. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and a simple kitchen occupied another. 2 small bedrooms and a surprisingly modern bathroom completed the space. "It needs some updating," Robert acknowledged, "but the bones are good. You could make it a weekend retreat, or even live here full-time if you wanted. The school district is excellent." I tried to imagine it. Mornings waking to the sound of lapping water, evenings watching the sunset over the lake, the children growing up with nature as their playground. It was tempting, but also intimidating. A completely fresh start in a new place. "I'll think about it," I told him. "For now, maybe we can come up on weekends, see how it feels." That became our new routine as winter melted into spring. Fridays after school, I'd pack the kids into the car and drive to the lake cabin, where we'd spend the weekend hiking, reading, playing board games, or simply sitting on the dock watching for wildlife. Lily discovered an interest in photography, while Noah filled sketchbook after sketchbook with drawings of trees, birds, and water. Eric's visit schedule continued. He would pick them up from school every other Wednesday and return them Friday afternoon, but he remained civil but distant. With me, our communication limited to logistics about the children. Stephanie I didn't see at all. Grandma Ruth visited the cabin often, sometimes staying overnight, delighting in the children's growing comfort with nature. "This place is good for all of you," she observed one evening as we sat on the porch watching Lily and Noah chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. "I can see the change in you, Jennifer. You're coming back to yourself." It was true. Something about the lake, the cabin, the rhythm of our weekends there was healing me in ways I hadn't expected. The knot of anxiety that had lived in my chest since finding Eric's messages had gradually loosened. I slept better, laughed more easily, found myself dreaming again of possibilities rather than just surviving each day. By late spring, I had made my decision. "I want to move to the cabin full-time," I told Grandma Ruth over lunch at her house, "before the new school year starts, so the kids can adjust." Her face lit up with pleasure. "I was hoping you'd say that. The city holds too many difficult memories for you. The lake can be your fresh start." "I'll need to figure out the logistics. For perfect day events," I said, thinking through the practical details. "Maybe open a satellite office closer to the lake, or arrange to work remotely part of the week. Or," she hesitated, a gleam in her eye, "you could consider something entirely new." "What do you mean?" "The Mitchell Foundation has been discussing a community center at the lake for years. We need someone with event planning experience, organizational skills, and deep community ties to oversee the project. Someone who understands both the year-round residents and the summer people. The position comes with a generous salary and flexible hours." I blinked, surprised. "Me? Run a community center? Why not? You've spent your career creating perfect moments for others. Maybe it's time to create something lasting for yourself and your children." She patted my hand. "Think about it. There's no rush." The idea was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Leave the business I'd built over more than a decade, take on a role I'd never imagined for myself, become part of a new community in a meaningful way. But then again, hadn't the past year proven I was capable of far more than I'd believed? The next few months passed in a whirlwind of activity. I accepted Grandma Ruth's offer, negotiating a transition plan that would allow me to gradually hand over Perfect Day events to Megan and Olivia as equal partners. I enrolled the children in their new school and worked with a contractor on updates to the cabin, expanding the kitchen, adding a proper office space, creating personalized bedrooms for Lily and Noah. Eric was surprisingly amenable to the move, perhaps because it put physical distance between our lives while still allowing his regular visitation schedule. He even helped the children pack up their rooms in our Pinewood Heights house, a gesture of goodwill I hadn't expected. The house sold quickly for more than I'd anticipated in Pinewood Heights' competitive market. Between those proceeds and my new financial security, I was able to create a home at the lake that reflected who we were becoming rather than who we had been. By August, we were fully settled in the renovated cabin. Floor-to-ceiling windows now lined the lake-facing wall, flooding the expanded living area with light. The children's rooms were personalized to their tastes. Nautical themes for Noah, a photography studio corner for Lily. My own bedroom was simple but luxurious, with a reading nook overlooking the water and the first truly comfortable mattress I'd owned in years. "It's perfect, Mom," Lily declared as she arranged her cameras on her new desk. "It feels like our real home now." Her words stayed with me that night as I sat alone on the dock, watching moonlight shimmer on the water. Our real home. Not the house where they'd been born, where we'd lived as a complete family, but this place we'd created after everything had fallen apart and been rebuilt. The irony wasn't lost on me. Eric and Stephanie's betrayal, painful as it had been, had ultimately freed me from a marriage that had been slowly suffocating me without my awareness. Their greed had prompted Grandma Ruth's intervention, which had given me financial independence I'd never imagined possible. Their cruelty had pushed me to discover a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I heard footsteps on the dock behind me and turned to see Grandma Ruth approaching, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, settling beside me without waiting for an answer. The children are both asleep. Noah was reading with a flashlight under his covers, but I pretended not to notice. "But I thought you should know." "Why?" I shrugged. "Because it matters. Because after everything that happened, everything we did to you, it seems important that you know it didn't work out, that it wasn't worth it." I processed this, uncertain how to respond. "When did this happen?" "About a month ago. He's moving to Chicago for a new job. A fresh start, he says." There was bitterness in her tone that suggested the decision hadn't been mutual. "And you? What will you do?" "Keep working. Keep trying to fix the mess I've made of my life." She looked up at me directly for the first time since entering the cabin, starting with this conversation. I waited, sensing there was more. "I owe you an apology, Jenny. Not just for Eric, though obviously for that too, but for everything. For the way I've competed with you our whole relationship. For never being the sister-in-law you deserved." Her voice wavered slightly. "I've been doing a lot of therapy since the breakup, trying to understand why I make the choices I do. Why I always want what other people have instead of appreciating what's mine." It was such an unexpected turn in the conversation that I found myself momentarily speechless. In all our years of friendship and family connection, through countless conflicts and reconciliations, Stephanie had never acknowledged her pattern of competition and envy so directly. "That must be difficult work," I said finally, unsure what else to offer. She nodded, blinking rapidly against tears. "It is, but necessary. I realized I've spent my whole life believing I was entitled to whatever I wanted, regardless of who it would hurt. That's not who I want to be anymore." I felt my defenses softening despite my determination to remain guarded. This was the Stephanie I remembered from the early years of my marriage, the one who could be vulnerable and genuine when she wasn't performing for an audience. What do you want from me, Stephanie? Forgiveness? Because I'm not sure I'm there yet. No, she said quickly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned that. I wanted you to know that I understand what I did now. The real harm, not just the surface stuff. And I'm sorry, truly sorry. She stood abruptly, as if staying longer might break her composure completely. I should go. The kids will be home from school soon, right? I don't want to complicate things. I glanced at the clock. She was right. The school bus would arrive in less than an hour. Yes, they will be. They look happy in the photos Catherine shows me, she said, moving toward the door. You've done a good job with them, Jenny. You always were the strong one. As she reached for the doorknob, a question suddenly pressed itself from my mind to my lips. Does Grandma Ruth know you're here? Stephanie turned, a flicker of her old mischievous smile appearing briefly. No, this was my idea, though I think she'd approve of me taking accountability for once in my life. And then she was gone, the white Range Rover disappearing down the gravel drive, leaving me standing in my kitchen with a half-empty coffee mug and a tangle of emotions I couldn't immediately sort through. I called Grandma Ruth that evening after the children were in bed, needing her perspective on Stephanie's unexpected visit. She came to apologize, I explained, still processing the encounter. She seemed different, genuine. Interesting, Grandma Ruth murmured. I wondered if the breakup might prompt some soul-searching. You knew about that? About Eric and Stephanie splitting up? Of course, she confirmed. Robert keeps tabs on these things. Apparently, Eric received a rather significant job offer in Chicago, too good to pass up, but also coincidentally requiring immediate relocation. I caught her implication immediately. You arranged it, the job offer. I may have mentioned his qualifications to an old friend who sits on their board, she admitted, not sounding remotely apologetic. The opportunity was genuine. Whether it was extended with unusual haste and exceptional terms is perhaps a matter of interpretation. I couldn't help but laugh at her audacity. You engineered their breakup. I merely created circumstances that would test their commitment, she corrected primly. If their relationship had been built on something solid, distance wouldn't have ended it. The fact that he jumped at the chance to leave suggests it was already failing. She wasn't wrong. If Eric had truly loved Stephanie, truly believed their relationship was worth the destruction it had caused, a job in Chicago wouldn't have been enough to separate them. So what happens now? I asked. With Stephanie, I mean. That's up to you, dear. She's made the first move toward reconciliation, but you're under no obligation to reciprocate if you're not ready. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. I thought about it. About the sister-in-law who had once been my closest friend before jealousy and competition had eroded our bond, even before Eric entered the picture. About the children who occasionally still asked about their aunt, despite her absence from their lives. I don't know if I can trust her again, I admitted. But I think maybe, eventually, we could try to rebuild something. Not what we had before, but something new, something healthier. Time will tell, Grandma Ruth said wisely. For now, focus on the life you're creating. The rest will sort itself out. The community center opened in early December with a holiday craft fair that drew residents from around the lake. I watched with quiet pride as neighbors who had previously had little interaction mingled over mulled cider, admiring local artisans' work and signing up for winter programs. You've created something meaningful here, Catherine said, squeezing my arm as we surveyed the bustling main hall. This is exactly what the lake community needed. I couldn't have done it without the foundation's support, I demurred. Foundation provided money, she corrected. You provided vision. There's a difference. Winter descended on the lake with a quiet beauty that took my breath away. The water froze in crystalline patterns near the shore, snow blanketed the surrounding woods, and on clear nights, stars scattered across the sky in numbers I'd never seen in the city. We embraced the season fully, ice skating on the lake, building snow forts, drinking hot chocolate by the fire as wind howled outside our snug cabin. One evening in mid-December, after the children were asleep, I found myself sorting through boxes of holiday decorations I'd brought from our old house. At the bottom of one, I discovered a photo album I hadn't looked at in years. Pictures from our early days as a family, before everything fell apart. There was Eric, proudly holding newborn Lily in the hospital. There I was, exhausted but beaming. Noah on my lap as we celebrated his first birthday. A family vacation at the beach, sandcastles and sunburned noses. Christmas mornings with wrapping paper strewn everywhere. Ordinary moments that had once formed the fabric of our lives together. I traced my finger over the images, surprised to find that they no longer caused the sharp pain they once had. Instead, there was a gentle melancholy, like looking at someone else's life. Which, in a way, it was. That Jenny, the one who had believed in her perfect family, her solid marriage, was someone I barely recognized anymore. The photos of Stephanie were there too, at Lily's baptism as her godmother, helping, decorate our first Christmas tree, laughing with me at a backyard barbecue. Once we had been genuine friends before jealousy and competition poisoned our relationship. Looking at these moments now, I could see the seeds of what would later destroy us. The way she always positioned herself next to Eric in group photos. How her gifts to him were always slightly more personal than appropriate. Had some part of me known even then? Had I chosen to ignore the warning signs because acknowledging them would have been too painful? I closed the album, not with anger, but with a sense of closure. These memories were part of my story, but they no longer defined me. The woman I had become in the aftermath of betrayal was stronger, clearer-eyed, and far more self-reliant than the one smiling from those glossy pages. Christmas approached, the first in our new home, and with it came decisions about traditions. Would we attend the family gathering at the lodge again? The thought of facing Eric, even if Stephanie wouldn't be there, filled me with anxiety. But isolating ourselves didn't feel right either. You should host Christmas Eve here, Catherine suggested during one of our weekly coffee dates. Something small, just you and the kids, me and Emma, Ruth and Robert, a new tradition for a new chapter. The idea immediately felt right. Our cabin had ample space, and the children were eager to show off their home to family members who hadn't yet visited. We could create our own celebration, honoring old traditions while establishing new ones that reflected who we were becoming. As I drove home from coffee with Catherine, my phone rang through the car's speakers. An unfamiliar Chicago number flashed. On the display. Curious, I answered. Jennifer? Eric's voice, slightly distorted by distance. Is this a bad time? I'm just driving home, I said, surprised. What's up? I wanted to check about the kids' spring break. I know it's still a few months away, but I need to request time off work if they're going to visit. He sounded different, more tentative, less entitled than I was used to. I've talked to them about it, I replied. They're excited about seeing Chicago. We just need to figure out the logistics. Great, he said, relief evident in his voice. I've been researching kid-friendly activities. There's this interactive science museum that Noah would love, and an art institute with photography workshops that seemed perfect for Lily. I was touched by this evidence that he'd been thinking carefully about what would interest each child. It was a level of attentiveness he hadn't always shown during our marriage. That sounds wonderful. They'll love it. There was a pause, a subtle shifting of tone. How's the community center coming along? It's open now, actually. We had our first event last weekend. A holiday craft fair. It went really well. I've seen the photos on Catherine's social media. It looks amazing. You've done something really special there, Jenny. His praise felt genuine, free of the subtle undermining that had often characterized his comments about my career during our marriage. I found myself responding in kind. Thanks. It's been rewarding work. Different from event planning, but I'm enjoying the change. Another pause. Listen, I've been meaning to tell you. He started, then stopped. I've been doing a lot of thinking since moving here, about the choices I made, the people I hurt. I owe you an apology, Jennifer. A real one, not the half-hearted justifications I've offered before. This was unexpected. First Stephanie, now Eric, both apparently on parallel journeys of self-reflection and accountability. Eric, no, please let me say this, he interrupted gently. What I did, the affair with Stephanie, the financial deception, all of it, was inexcusable. I could offer explanations about feeling trapped or unappreciated, but the truth is simpler and uglier. I was selfish. I put my wants above my responsibilities to you and the children, and I'm deeply, genuinely sorry. I guided the car around a curve in the road, processing his words. There had been a time when I would have given anything to hear this apology, when I believed it would somehow heal the wounds his betrayal had inflicted. Now, I found it meaningful but no longer necessary for my own healing. I appreciate your saying that, I said finally. It means something to hear it. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued, but I want you to know that I'm trying to be better, a better father, a better person. Chicago is partly about that, a fresh start, a chance to figure out who I want to be going forward. That sounds positive, I offered. It is. There was something lighter in his voice now, as if unburdening himself had lifted a weight. I should let you go. Just email me the flight details when you have them, and we can coordinate the rest. After we hung up, I continued driving, watching snowflakes begin to drift lazily across my windshield. The landscape around me was transformed by winter, familiar shapes rendered new under blankets of white. It struck me as an apt metaphor for my own life, everything I had known covered over, revealing unexpected beauty in the transformation. The holiday preparation became a family project. Lily and Noah helped me select a perfect tree from a nearby farm, which we decorated with a mix of heirloom ornaments from Grandma Ruth and handmade creations the children crafted at school. We baked cookies using my grandmother-in-law's recipes, sent handwritten cards to friends and relatives, and filled the house with greenery gathered from our property. Mom, can we invite Uncle Mark? Lily asked one evening as we strung popcorn garlands for the tree. Mark, Eric's brother and Stephanie's ex-husband, had maintained a cautious relationship with us through the divorce, caught in an impossible position between family loyalties. Do you want to? I asked, surprised. He had kept his distance in recent months, our communication limited to brief exchanges when he dropped off or picked up his daughter Emma from Catherine's house. Lily nodded. He always carves the wooden ornaments, and he seems sad when I see him at Aunt Catherine's. Out of the mouths of babes. I hadn't considered how isolated Mark might be feeling, cut off from much of his family by circumstances beyond his control. The divorce had fractured more than just my immediate family. It had created fault lines through the entire Mitchell clan. I'll call him, I promised. Mark sounded genuinely touched by the invitation. Are you sure, Jenny? You literally texted, "We'd love to have you document the evening. Not join us or celebrate with us. Document." She fell silent, apparently realizing for the first time how her behavior might have appeared from my perspective. Gregory cleared his throat gently. Perhaps we should return to the matter at hand. Ms. Anderson, Mrs. Mitchell has authorized me to present a settlement offer that would avoid potentially messy litigation. He opened a leather portfolio and removed a document which he slid across the table. Mrs. Mitchell is prepared to establish a modest trust for you, approximately 5% of what Jennifer and the children will receive. It's contingent on several conditions, however. Stephanie's eyes narrowed as she scanned the document. What conditions? First, you and Eric cease all legal challenges to Ruth's estate planning decisions, I explained. Second, Eric returns the funds he diverted from the children's original accounts with interest. Third, you both sign agreements acknowledging your actions and waiving any future claims. And if I refuse? Then we proceed with a full legal and forensic accounting investigation into the financial irregularities we've documented, Gregory said matter-of-factly, which I should note would almost certainly impact Eric's professional standing and future career as a financial advisor. The threat hung in the air, its implications clear. Eric's entire career could be destroyed if the extent of his financial misconduct became public knowledge. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Eric had built his reputation on being trustworthy with money, an image that wouldn't survive this scandal. Stephanie's expression shifted from defiance to calculation as she processed this reality. I need to discuss this with Eric, she said, finally. And our own attorney. Of course, Gregory agreed smoothly. I've prepared copies of the relevant documentation for your review. He handed her a sealed envelope. You have 1 week to make your decision. 1 week? She protested. That's not enough time for something this significant. 1 week, I repeated firmly. This has dragged on long enough. I want it resolved before the children return to school. Stephanie stood, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. For a moment, she looked uncertain, almost vulnerable. Then her eyes met mine, and I glimpsed something I'd rarely seen from my confident, self-assured sister-in-law. Fear. Jenny, she said softly, can we talk? Just us. I hesitated, looking to Gregory, who gave a slight nod. 5 minutes, I agreed. We can use my office. My office at Perfect Day Events reflected my professional aesthetic. Clean lines, calming colors, beautifully organized storage systems. Photos of successful events lined one wall. Industry awards occupied a tasteful shelf, and a large window overlooked downtown Pinewood Heights. It was my sanctuary, the place where I felt most competent and in control. Stephanie paced the small space while I settled behind my desk, watching her warily. This is insane, she burst out finally. All of it. The lawyers, the threats, the ultimatums. We're family, Jenny. Family fights, they hurt each other sometimes. But they don't do this. She gestured vaguely toward the conference room we'd left. What exactly did you expect? I asked quietly. That you could sleep with my husband, help him steal from my children, exclude us from family events, and I'd just... What? Get over it? Accept it as some kind of sisterly disagreement? I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she insisted, her eyes filling with tears that looked genuine for once. Eric and I, it wasn't planned. We connected at a time when we were both struggling, and things just developed. Things don't just develop, Stephanie. People make choices. You made choices. Eric made choices. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices. So that's it? No forgiveness? No second chances? Just punishment and retribution? A tear slipped down her cheek and she wiped it away angrily. I thought you were better than that. The accusation stung, poking at my lifelong tendency to be the reasonable one, the peacemaker, the sister-in-law who forgave and forgot for family harmony. For a moment, I wavered. Maybe I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. Then I remembered Lily asking why her father could attend other family events but not her school concert. I remembered Noah crying because he couldn't understand why Aunt Stephanie didn't want to see him anymore. I remembered the casual cruelty of their Christmas celebration without us. This isn't about punishment. I said finally. It's about boundaries. For the first time in my life, I'm setting clear boundaries about how I deserve to be treated and what I will accept from people who claim to love me. And what about how you're treating me? She countered. Cutting me off from my inheritance? Threatening Eric's career? Those aren't boundaries, Jenny. That's revenge. The inheritance was never yours to begin with. It was Grandma Ruth's to distribute as she saw fit. As for Eric's career, he endangered that himself when he chose to misappropriate funds. I stood up, done with the conversation. You're 5. Minutes are up. Talk to your lawyer, make your decision, but understand this. I'm not intervening on your behalf, not this time. Her expression hardened, the vulnerability vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. You'll regret this. When the dust settles and you're alone with 2 kids and a pile of money you never earned, you'll regret choosing bitterness over family. Maybe, I acknowledged. But right now, I'm choosing peace over chaos, honesty over manipulation, and my children's well-being over your comfort. That feels like the right decision, even if it's not an easy one. I left her standing in my office, returning to the conference room where Gregory waited expectantly. She'll take the deal, I said, with certainty. She can't risk Eric losing his license. That would destroy their lifestyle too completely. I wouldn't want to make things awkward. The only awkward thing would be excluding you because of what Eric and Stephanie did, I said firmly. You're still family to us. Thank you, he said, his voice rougher than usual. That means a lot. On Christmas Eve morning, as I was preparing for our guests' arrival, I paused to look at the transformation of our cabin. Evergreen boughs adorned the mantel alongside Lily's carefully arranged pine cones. Paper snowflakes that Noah had cut hung from fishing line in front of the windows, spinning gently in the warmth from the fire. The tree glittered in the corner, strands of popcorn and cranberries winding through its branches alongside the more conventional ornaments. None of it was perfect. The popcorn strand had gaps where the children had eaten their materials. Noah's snowflakes were lopsided. The tree itself leaned slightly to one side despite our best efforts with the stand. But there was an authenticity to it all, a handmade quality that felt right for this new chapter of our lives. I thought about the Christmases we had hosted in our old house, the professionally decorated tree, the color-coordinated wrapping paper, the Pinterest-worthy tablescapes I had labored over. I had spent so much energy trying to create picture-perfect moments that I sometimes missed experiencing the moments themselves. The sound of tires on gravel announced the first of our guests. Through the window, I saw Mark's truck pulling up, his tall figure emerging with an armload of gifts. I opened the door before he could knock. "Merry Christmas," I said, stepping back to welcome him in. He hesitated on the threshold, his expression a mix of uncertainty and gratitude. "Merry Christmas, Jenny. This place is beautiful." "Uncle Mark," Lily's excited voice called as she raced from her bedroom. She threw herself into his arms with a force that nearly toppled him. "Did you bring your carving tools? Can we make new ornaments?" His face transformed with a genuine smile, the first I'd seen from him in months. "I brought everything we need, Lily Pad. Where's that brother of yours?" As they disappeared into the children's area of the cabin, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire crackling in the hearth. This was what the holidays should be. People who cared about each other coming together, not out of obligation, but from genuine connection. Throughout the afternoon, our small gathering took shape. Catherine and Emma arrived with homemade bread and matching Christmas sweaters. Grandma Ruth and Uncle Robert brought presents and Ruth's traditional Christmas punch. The cabin filled with delicious smells, music, and laughter as we moved through the familiar rituals of the holiday. In the kitchen, preparing vegetables for dinner, I found myself working alongside Catherine and Mark, the three of us who had been most directly wounded by Eric and Stephanie's betrayal. There was a moment of shared understanding as our eyes met over the cutting boards. "Who would have thought we'd end up here?" Catherine said softly, voicing what we were all feeling. Not me, Mark admitted. Last Christmas, I thought my life was over. I couldn't imagine ever feeling normal again. And now? I asked. He considered this, his knife pausing over an onion. Now I know that normal is overrated. I'd rather be authentic, even if it hurts sometimes. Catherine nodded. I spent too many years trying to make everything look perfect from the outside. Now I'm more interested in what's real. To what's real, I agreed, raising my wine glass in a small toast. They clinked their glasses against mine, and in that moment, I felt a sense of kinship with these two that went beyond our shared history of pain. We had all survived. We were all building something new from the wreckage of what we'd lost. At dinner, we gathered around the table I'd made from reclaimed wood found in the boathouse during the community center renovation. It wasn't the elegant dining set from our old house, but its imperfections and history gave it character that felt appropriate for our reconstituted family. Before we eat, Grandma Ruth said, raising her glass, I'd like to propose a toast. To new beginnings, to hard-won wisdom, and to the family we choose to build around us, not just the one we're born into. To family, we echoed, glasses clinking in the warm light. Later, after the children had opened their Christmas Eve gifts, new pajamas as tradition dictated, and gone to bed vibrating with anticipation for morning, the adults gathered in the living room. The conversation flowed easily, touching on plans for the new year, memories of holidays past, and hopes for the future. I've been thinking about expanding the community center programming, I mentioned during a lull. Maybe adding some workshops for children during school breaks. I could teach woodworking, Mark offered immediately. I've been wanting to do something more meaningful than corporate furniture design. And I know some artists who would volunteer for art classes, Catherine added. Emma's teacher has been looking for community outreach opportunities. Just like that, new possibilities began to take shape. Connections and collaborations. That wouldn't have existed without the upheaval that had brought us all to this point. There was a synchronicity to it that felt almost fated, as if the universe had conspired to break apart what wasn't working to make room for what could. As the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, Mark lingered, helping me clear the last of the dishes. Thank you, he said quietly as we worked side by side at the sink. For including me. For not letting what they did define all of us. We're still family, I said simply. Just a different configuration than we expected. After everyone had gone and the cabin was quiet except for the occasional crackle from the dying fire, I sat by the window watching snow fall on the frozen lake. Tomorrow would bring the excited chaos of Christmas morning, children tearing into presents, more food and family time. But for now, this moment of peaceful solitude was a gift I gave myself. Reflected in the glass, I could see our Christmas tree, the stockings hanging by the fireplace, the remnants of our celebration scattered around the room. Imperfect, authentic, entirely ours. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, desperately, trying to maintain appearances, to keep everyone happy, to preserve traditions that no longer served their purpose. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, more grounded, more authentic. Someone who understood that family wasn't defined by legal ties or blood relations, but by the choice to show up for each other. Someone who knew that the most meaningful traditions were the ones we created ourselves, not those imposed by others' expectations. The Mediterranean cruise, the vacation I had canceled in a moment of righteous anger, seemed like a relic from another lifetime. How desperate I had been to preserve the illusion of family harmony, willing to spend thousands of dollars to pretend that everything was fine, even as my world was crumbling around me. The money saved from canceling that vacation had gone into renovating this cabin, creating a true home for my children and myself. It was a metaphor too perfect to ignore. Resources redirected from maintaining appearances to building something real. As snow continued to fall, transforming the landscape into something magical and new, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for what had happened. The betrayal would always remain a painful chapter in my story, but for what had emerged from it. For the clarity to recognize what truly mattered. For the courage to let go of what didn't. For the wisdom to know the difference. In losing what I thought I couldn't live without, I had found something far more valuable: myself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.